Hi, everyone. Welcome to engAGING Gerontology Talks. I am Zoe Byington, and I'm here with Sherry Snelling, our co-host of this podcast, and our guest today, Christina Peoples, which we are super excited to have. I am finishing up graduate school at Georgetown studying aging and health, and I am a future gerontologist. So that's why we are having these engAGING Gerontology Talks. And this is Sherry Snelling. If you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Sherry Snelling. I'm a corporate gerontologist and also CEO and founder of the Caregiving Club. And I was just telling Christina, I'm so excited to have her as part of one of our guests for this series because she's just so energetic. And I think you're just going to really enjoy this conversation. And I'm wearing orange in the spirit of her energy flow that I get from watching her videos. So, so welcome, Christina.
Yeah, Chris, you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us what you do, a little bit about yourself.
All right, so yes, I'm Christina Peoples. I am a gerontologist, and I'm the creator of a blog. Well, it's a brand, but it's known as Gero-What, and it is geared towards just talking about all things related to aging, the challenges that we might come across, the ups, the downs, and all of the different changes that we experience. But aside from that, I'm also a long-term care ombudsman. And for those who are not aware of what that is basically an advocate for residents who live in long-term care communities such as nursing homes or assisted living homes. And whenever there is an issue or a concern with how the resident is being treated or cared for, then they reach out to me and I work to come up with a solution for that resident. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, that's super cool. Especially the Gero-What blog, because it's just so innovative. And I always like to say, when people think of gerontology, they do not think of necessarily like this creative side of things, which is super cool. So going to rewind a little bit. I know you got your undergraduate and your master's degree in gerontology. So why did you decide to do that?
Well, okay. So this is what happened. I went to Winston-Salem State University to get my bachelor's degree, and the goal was to major in nursing, but I did not get accepted into the program. So I was kind of like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I always knew that I wanted to work with older adults. That's been something that I just enjoyed doing since I was a kid. So I knew as I got older, like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I just thought it was going to look different than how things turned out. So I didn't get into the nursing program. And one of my good friends had told me that Winston-Salem State had a program known as gerontology, and it was fairly new. And she was like, I'm thinking about changing my major to that. So I was like, let me look into this. And I spoke with the advisor about it and took a look at the course outline. And I was like, okay, these courses look interesting. I'm going to give it a try. And I really enjoyed it. So when I graduated, I thought, life is about to just start flowing. Everything's just going to fall into place. And that is not what happened. I could not find a job in the field initially. And honestly, where my mind was then, I don't think things clicked. Like, your instructor, they teach you, things and all of that stuff. But it's like, for me, I feel like there was a little delay with letting things click. So, whereas some of my other friends who graduated from the program instantly got a job, that just didn't happen for me. And I ended up working at an insurance company. So some years went by and I was just like, this is just not cutting it for me. And I didn't have like a mentor or anyone that said, well, consider going to school to do this or consider looking into this. So I just said, I'm going to do what I know. And I'm going to get my master's in gerontology. Maybe that's what I need. So people will say, oh, let's give her a chance. So that's how I ended up getting my master's in gerontology. Everybody is different. I think, well, now I know most people usually get it in another area, but it worked out for me. And so that's kind of how the bachelor's and the master's in the field of gerontology happened.
That's really interesting. Especially, I was really curious about bachelor's in gerontology because, like you said, sometimes people don't, they do different things. I myself did not get a bachelor's in gerontology, but just decided to pursue a master's.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I think it kind of showcases that, like, you can do it, like, when you're super young too. Like, this isn't something that, you have to wait later on.
Right.
Um,
And I just want to jump in here because Christina, I wonder if now looking back, do you think that when you got your undergraduate degree, gerontology was still, I mean, we all know on this talk, people still don't know what it means, right?
mhm.
But do you
Okay.
think that was part of it? And then, a few years later, you go back and get your master's. Now maybe people are starting to understand. Do you think that was a little bit of it?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that. Okay, so this was like 2007, 2008 when I had changed my major to gerontology. Nobody knew. I mean, and like you said, like people are just now beginning to even learn what that term means, right? No, nobody knew. So okay, you go to a job interview, they've looked at your resume, they see what you got your degree in, but it's not like, ooh, her background is in gerontology, we need her. So you could, I was going to different nursing homes, applying for different positions, but my degree meant nothing to them.
Yeah.
So, it really was one of those things where because people didn't know, if you never studied it, if if you didn't have to take a class in it, depending on your profession, you wouldn't know like that this degree has benefit to your company or your organization.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect segue into the next question because I am curious. How have you seen the field of gerontology change, and how have you been able to utilize your master's degree now? Like you said, people are starting to finally know. So, is it helpful to you?
Yeah, like I've seen more people in different backgrounds, not even related to healthcare, take an interest in gerontology or say, oh, I'm going to do the certification route and just get that certificate because I need to know more about this. So, some of the change that I've seen is that now people really have an interest in learning about the aging process and how this knowledge can benefit their own personal lives or their professional lives. I always tell people you could be a mechanic, and I feel like you should have knowledge in this field because once we understand the aging process, really, once we understand that aging is what we all do from birth until death, and then we understand how we change, biologically, psychologically, socially. I feel like when we have that understanding, we're able to see, like, wow, I can plug this in right here, dealing with my customers, or I can plug this into a program or a project idea that I have that will benefit all ages, not just this one group of people. But I feel like having that gerontological knowledge is just, it benefits all of us in a way.
Absolutely. So I become a fangirl of yours. I love Gero-What. And one of the things I really love, Christina, is that you're taking on ageism head on. You're really talking about so many of the things that we see. One of the things I really laughed about is you said, we say that as you get older, you're wiser, you have all this wisdom. That's not always true. And I thought, that is true. But what I love is you were talking a little bit about Ashton Applewhite's recent blog, I think it was. But tell me, what are some of the myths and the misperceptions that you've encountered in terms of kind of growing older and this kind of ageism that we're talking about now?
Uh, the number one thing is the whole like too old or too young. It's something that I hear people put in their sentences all the time, right? My family, my friends, my associates, everyone thinks that. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And so a lot of times people place an age on what they should and should not be able to do, or what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. And it's just kind of like, it's that internal ageism, and it's how what we I honestly call it an excuse. I don't know if that's like disregarding how people feel, but a lot of times we give excuses. So we'll say, well, I'm too old to do that, but maybe it's just I'm afraid to try it. And we use our age as that. But when we're using our age as the reason, we don't realize how many other things we're limiting ourselves from being able to do, right? So that's one of the myths, is just the too old or too young type phrasing, but also abilities. So people associate their age with physical abilities. So, or physical pain, as an example. My knee is hurting, it's because I'm getting older. Or I'm having back pain, it's because I'm getting older. And that's not always true. It could be some other type of issue that you're having, and you need to seek professional help to address that matter. So those are the main ones that I see. I mean, even if you just get on social media, like the other day I was on there and someone was saying like, oh, you can tell I'm getting older because I don't even like to go out anymore, or I'm going to bed earlier. No, your interests have changed. You're not interested in going out as often as you used to, or you're prioritizing your sleep. And it's like, I feel better when I go to bed earlier. And back in the day, I didn't prioritize my sleep. It's just really taking a look at what we're saying and the truth in that, because a lot of times the little phrases that we use or how we associate it with aging are just not true. They're all false. So,
and I love how you're putting the positive spin on that. One of the things I loved when I went back, got my gerontology master's, was all the positivity psychology that we learned, but you're putting the positive on it. It's not that I don't want to go to a rave tonight, and I'm in my 70s, right? It's because my sleep is really important to my health, and I have better cognitive ability or whatever in the morning. So I love that you're kind of putting that spin on it, which I think is so critical. I want to also ask you, because there's so much now. I do a lot of work with employers, and there's a lot of movement now around, DEI policies and all of those things. And ageism doesn't seem to make it into that bucket. Are there any comments that you have in terms of just, aging in different cultures and, with different kinds of races? Do you see differences in how we look at aging?
absolutely. I mean, with other cultures, their view on getting older is honorable, and it's something that they look forward to. Whereas in the Western culture, just it's almost like a dread. We begrudge it. It's not the thing. And so we use words like "I am not aging" or "Oh, you haven't aged a bit," right? We do things like that. But yeah, in other cultures, it's completely different. It's held in high regard to get older and to, make it to age 80 or 90 or 100. And I feel like in a lot of ways we do see that as amazing, but the reason we see it as amazing is because in our minds we feel like you shouldn't be living that long. Not because this is just awesome that you've made it another year. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But with different races, I can speak for like the Black community. I feel like with reference to the ageism piece, it's tricky, right? It gets real blurry because every culture has their sayings, every culture has their traditions, and if you're not careful, now you're getting outside of what the tradition of your culture says. And so with ageism, it's like, oh, respect your elders. They're wise and they're all of these things. And not to say that there aren't some who are older or even younger who are wise. But in that, we got to get real. Like, is this person really wise? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just cultures and how they see aging. At times, it may feel positive and it might look positive, but when we really kind of break down what's being said, it's like, wait a minute. I think we've got this all twisted. So I do see a difference. And I think my desire is for people, like just kind of going back to what I said earlier, just really understanding what aging means. There's just such a lack of knowledge when it comes to that. And I get it, because when you turn on your TV, when you get on social media, when you turn on your radio, all of the things that are being said are opposite to what I'm saying
Right.
to people who listen, you know what I mean? So I get it. It's hard to unlearn something that you have been experiencing since you were a child. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I so appreciate those insights. I think that is really important. We're a little youth obsessed maybe in America. So, but what I always laugh about is the one thing we all have in common is we're all aging, you know? And my other question is that, in terms of your long-term care ombudsman work, which is so important to have that advocate, and that's what you are for a lot of families and older adults. How do you feel your education in gerontology has made you better at what you do, or made you think differently about how you approach that role?
That's a good question. Honestly, the way I communicate with those residents, I feel like I learned how to do that because of my degree in gerontology. So we learned different terms, ageism, things that fall in that, like elder speak. We learned about different resources. So when I have a resident that might call, and it's not necessarily related to how they're being treated for or cared for, but they might have a question about Medicare and Medicaid, or they may have a question about just general things that are provided in the community. But I learned about some of those resources because of my degree. My degree caused me to want to research and see what is out there that can help older adults or just people in general who are living in the community and might be eligible for Medicaid, as an example. So the degree, I think, provoked thought. It caused me to see things from a different lens and approach different people, myself, with that perspective of we're all getting older, and what are some of the things that can help us and enhance our well-being and quality of life as we continue getting older.
Great. Well, I'm going to turn it back to Zoe to kind of wrap us up. I could talk to you all day, but
I was going to say, just listening, it's very interesting, because if I were to pick up on a theme, kind of what we're talking about, I feel like you kind of bring to the table addressing like ageism and the ageist language, and just like you were mentioning, elder speak. And it's something that a lot of people are not simply aware of. We're starting to understand what gerontology is and how that's helping older adults, but people don't understand, if you're looking at an onion, all the layers behind it. So I think that's really fascinating how you're kind of saying like, hey guys, like, yeah, you see this, but look at this other stuff too. But just kind of wrap this up. I know you kind of mentioned already about, what people want to get out of gerontology is the birth to end of life, but is there anything else you really think that should be pushed for gerontologists, and why companies should be looking at us and bringing us into the workspaces?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like I feel like having gerontologists on board could prevent age discrimination, which is just, it's out there all day, every day. But having that person with a gerontological background involved with that, like, wait a minute, let's take a step back, and being able to throw out different things that'll, cause that employer or whomever to look at it differently. I think that's something that is needed. And even if just, having a gerontologist that could just be called on for resources, we're a resource. Because we're so broad, it's like, we're kind of dibbling and dabbling into everything, whether it's in the medical field, whether it's in the accounting area, like whatever the case is, we're so broad that the knowledge that we have gained from the gerontology program is just beneficial for everyone. And it'll look different for everyone. But I do believe that having that background and being like a go-to person is where it's at. I'll just keep it simple, right? I
That's awesome.
I feel like gerontologists are a good go-to person. Where you'll really get a whole nother perspective on which direction your company is going into, or what changes need to be made in your company that can benefit everyone of all ages. So.
And thank you for reminding us of that. I think so often, again, people think gerontology is only about older people, but you even said with ageism, we can be ageist about younger generations. And, we look across the whole life course. So thank you for reminding us that. This has been delightful, Zoe.
Really cool. Yeah.
And Christina, this is a really exciting thing that we're doing. I'm so excited to get connected to you through this project. So
I'm glad you all reached out. I really appreciate it. And I'm the same way. Like, I could talk all day, right? Especially when it comes to aging. It's like, what? You said aging? Yeah, let's talk. So.
And I always like to say, someone who's kind of coming into the field of gerontology, you make like someone like you who's so enthusiastic makes it really exciting and kind of this is like the why we're doing this podcast, to show people like what's out there and like those non-traditional routes that people always think of. It's work in nursing homes, but there's so much more to offer, which I think is super, super cool.
Yeah, I really think like where things are going, it's almost, there's so much space for us to create and do whatever we want with this degree. And with that, it's like we'll be helping so many people. So that I love that about this. It looked scary and rocky in the beginning because it was like, wait, things are not going the way I thought they would. But it's like, looking back, it's kind of like, wow, I'm glad it happened this way. I needed this, right?
Absolutely. And now we're part of a club, right? Gerontologists rock.
Yes, okay.
We rock.
Well, thank you, Christina. It's lovely talking to you.
Here. Thank you all. I hope y'all have a great day.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to plug you real quick. It's Gero-What.com for your super cool blog posts and everything to do with aging. And everyone should check it out because you put a really positive spin on it, like Sherry said.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Zoe. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.